the school's vision. So to better understand more about this case, it's important for us collectively to better understand what is a vision statement. So a vision statement really answers the questions, the what and the why. So a vision statement is a desired state of where you're going, and goals are the outcome measures to know you are making progress towards that desired state and vision. So what gets monitored gets improved. Goals are attainable focus and to support the trajectory towards the desired state. So it's important for us to have that context going into this case study as we look at this situation. And first, after reading the case study, it was important for us to examine the facts. So, when making a decision, it's important to understand the observable facts prior to making meaning of them. So what is true? What do we know? What is objective? And really is in three different categories. So first, what? It's a new middle school. It is a new principal. It is a blended staff. Meaning they have some returning teachers and some veteran teachers. It is also, there's an advisory team that's being created. They were tasked to write the vision statement. So that is the task. And there's really two options or opinions on how to proceed in the case study. So when and where, the school population is increasing. So there's an influx of families, need for more space. An additional school was voted to be built, so that already passed. A new principal was hired. She was given 3 focus areas or objectives to work on this first year. One of those was to form an advisory committee to support this work with the vision statement. And then conflict occurred on how to proceed with writing the vision statement. So that's what we know. And who are some major players in this? So people who have a main influence over this vision statement are the new principal, the advisory committee, and I would say superintendent and school board are part of that decision-making process. Those that have influence or should have influence are community members, staff, district leaders, students, and parents. So first, again, in making a decision, we have to kind of look through different lenses. One, are there any legal issues that are jumping out we need to attend to or ethical issues at play? Legal issues for this specific case, no, there were no legal issues or legal matters that we needed to look at. Ethical issues, yeah, there were a couple to kind of look at. One to note was the decision to build the middle school. So if we go back to that decision, was anyone harmed in that? There was some financial harm from those. There was said there was 3 different factions. One, we're very concerned about the financial implications. Not our main problem we're focusing on here, but it was part of the case study and could have implications in how people view the school and for the vision statement. Possible ethical dilemma that came to the top. Susan as the principal really wanted to have this shared leadership model, but she also gave up complete control to Helen as the co-chair. And so now potentially going back on that decision by not following Helen's protocol of how she wants to do things, for whatever reason, that alone could have like an ethical dilemma around trust. Again, with trust, another potential harm could be a future state. So right in the moment, it could mistrust by not following the protocol. On the other end, it could also hurt trust by saying they'll follow almost blindly with whatever Susan wants because they've hired her and entrusted her. However, there's no way to predict that. And if conflict arises, especially around values or beliefs, trust could be broken again. So some future dilemmas. So it brings a wondering to the table, is too much emphasis being placed on the development of a vision statement prior to school opening? So when we run into this dilemma, we think, is it worth it, right? Do we need to continue to pursue this or do we need to just take a step back? My personal answer on that would be no, because a vision statement is, definitely necessary for making decisions and identity. And so this is also a time where the product is less important than the process itself. So what do we know to be true? If we had to synthesize all of this into a single statement, I might paraphrase it back to say, the advisory committee has the common goal of creating a vision statement and goals for the newly built middle school. However, they cannot agree on the best approach to do so. So again, this is more about process than product at this point. And to better understand the task, it's important for us to kind of understand, again, vision versus mission. So a mission statement communicates the what, and the how. Vision statement communicates the why and the where. What is that desired state? Where do you hope to be? And why is that important to our community and to our school? So these are connected. The mission typically really drives the vision. But for the purpose of this case study and what their task is, we're going to really focus in only on the vision statement at this time. So my hunch is the mission will come later, but they are wanting to start with the vision. And so let's continue to kind of organize our facts into these three categories now. So people, places, and programs. So who are the people that are the stakeholders in this decision? So you see a list of them here. I added to this a little bit the community members, noting the three factions. I think that could be really important. And then also being very specific that Helen is the committee head. The places, so again, we already went through this a little bit. It is a rural school district. It is a new middle school. And it is important to note that the principal comes from outside of this community and the programs involved. It is a public school, so that has a little more community pull, especially with tax dollars involved in it as well. We are looking at grades 6 through 8 middle school and an advisory committee. So a couple of questions to kind of consider. Could the conflict, the situation, or the decision be damaging to stakeholders in the community? Yeah. If the decision is not clear or completed with clear processes, then it could really upset the community and the staff. And in a small one, that's tough. What individuals and groups have an important stake in the outcome? Again, these same people have a stake in this. And so there's a lot of different moving pieces. It's very complex. Have all of the relevant stakeholders been consulted? I would say no, not yet. There's a lot of voice. Right now, they have a very small advisory committee. And can I learn more about the situation? Yes, there's a lot more I'd like to know. I'd like to know what are some of the fears that are preventing people from proceeding on writing their own vision statement. I would also like to know what the team might believe possible and negative implications are. They haven't really explored the different processes to the depth of implications of why and what's driving their hesitation or their desire to do it one way over the other. Also, more that we know is a lot of data. We need a lot of data to come out in this. And so some of the questions I was considering going through this is what I would do if I was in the situation is I would want a data-informed decision and think about who do we need to collect data from? Whose voice is important to have on the table? Think about all those stakeholder groups. I'd want to get surveys and so going to data collection, getting surveys, getting open forums, possibly getting people to talk about their core values, and just getting all of that so that way they are representing a different voice at the table, not just a small advisory committee. And then how are we going to synthesize and now analyze all of that data to make meaning of it and what's coming to the surface collectively? I'd also want to pull some information about the community. What are the needs? What are the barriers? What are the gaps in education that are needed in that community? So there's a lot more data, I think, that needs to come into play before they even start constructing a vision statement right off the bat. So do I have enough to make a decision at this point? No, I think as we just talked about, there's a lot more data that needs to come into play into this process. And I think the decision needs to be with the team and that more dialogue should occur. More dialogue should occur around what data is necessary at the table to begin writing, and then what processes will be used to help them make meaning of all of that information and synthesize it. However, they do have some options on the table. So option one, first off the bat, everybody always has this option, and it is to do nothing. And so the strategies for this one, how would that play out? Pretty simple. You avoid and you do nothing. And by making that choice, because that is a choice, There are definitely some implications to that, so we're going to explore those. I couldn't really find any positive implications for that, but I definitely found a lot of cons. And so some to be the task doesn't get done and people become frustrated. Option 2, I call it Helen's choice. So she kind of presented to the table her choice of just having Susan write it. So possibly Susan could provide her core values, and then maybe they could script, maybe you could even ask her to script 3 for the group to choose from. So kind of balancing a little bit, but essentially she wants Susan to do it. Pros in that is that theirs is a short term. You get some agreement. So there's some short wins or quick wins, and also short term, no conflict. However, some cons is that a lot of assumptions would be made about where the work is headed and supposed to be headed because it's only owned by one person. It can lead to conflict. It can also lead to work silos. So, and option number 3 is then Susan's choice. She wants to really have everyone go around and tell them what their vision statement is, and then you can blend it together and find one. So maybe each member would write down, share their vision for the middle school. Time is spent discussing and weighing the pros and cons, and then a vote is cast. She had mentioned everyone has a vote, and so the vote would be cast. Positives in this is that dialogue would take place. Everyone would really be able to put it out there. There could be ownership in the work because they're all talking about it and making meaning of it in the moment. Some cons, a vote leads to winners and losers. And so people would have to be vulnerable to put their ideas out there, being open to that maybe their idea wouldn't be chosen. Conflict in opinion could occur. And in doing it this particular way, your idea is tied to the person. What do you think it should be? What do you think it should be? No, yes, no, yes. And it's very personal, and it can be time consuming. I would like to propose an option 4 for them to consider, and it's a co-constructing option. So kind of leaning in toward what Susan was wanting, but really adding a little bit more. So we would start with first just that basic learning about vision statement. What is a vision statement? Do we all have a clear understanding about this task? And then again, going to all of that data. This advisory committee is all about advocacy. It's not necessarily just their opinion, but they're advocating for a larger group. And so they need to have that information and data to be able to represent that group. And then provide some stems about the writing process to help them really kind of get it going, and then to help separate the idea from the person, just putting all these ideas out on the table, and then using balanced participation and dialogue to promote psychological safety and efficiency. You can't just talk about it forever and not make a decision. We need to have tight structures. Pros is that participants are engaged in the learning process right from the beginning. So there's clarity being formed, seeking to understand one another. So when that conflict comes up, we have a strategy for that. You're building collective ownership as you go, not only in the people at the group, but in all stakeholders, because you're getting their voice with the data. And this definitely promotes psychological safety. A con that I saw is definitely time consuming up front. It would take a lot of time up front. I would lean into the fact that this is actually could be a pro in the fact that you go slow to go fast, but it definitely is more time consuming than just one person doing it. So in my professional opinion, what is that best option? Drum roll would be option 4. Definitely that co-constructing had, when you weighed it, had the most options. So what might Susan need to stay mindful of? What's that magic formula she needs to be thinking about? She needs to be thinking about communication. What does this communication need to be? The why, the decisions, the fears, the hopes, everything involved in that. What does the research say? What does evidence-based practices in this? What do other experts say is the best way to go, not just one opinion? What are those levels of empowerment? She gave up a lot of empowerment to this team, and now she's wanting to take a little bit back. And so she's going to have to kind of talk through that a little bit and then really be clear about what are those levels of empowerment she truly wants to give people in the processes. And then team development. This advisory team needs a little bit of team development to understand one another as they go through. And when you put all of those things together, I do believe she will have clarity in this process. And so after the decision has been made, what should Susan's plan of action be? Here's what I would propose. I would say first meet Helen in person, understand that vision statement, and possibly get a campaign going out to all stakeholders to say, why is this important? What's going on? How will this be used in the improvement process? And then once you understand that, let's communicate the dilemma. Let's understand the problem a little bit better. Finally, it's important then to explore those implications of options, just like I did on my own. I would have Susan do that collectively with Helen. And then propose option 4, the new solution after seeing this. And then have Susan and Helen collectively repeat steps 1 through 4 with the whole committee, once there's a common understanding there. And then pause to definitely reflect and dialogue. Make sure everyone is understanding and agreeing that this is the right way to go. And then you move forward. However, that's perfect world. We know that that might not always be the case. So what might be some additional considerations? Who also might need to know? Again, here's some other people when you think about considerations and ideas and eliciting data from that you might need to lean into to make this decision. Also, what if this plan doesn't work? You might need more time for dialogue around the process alone, right? Like we're not even ready to go to the decision. It's just we need to figure out the best process. Possibly a neutral facilitator is necessary. Somebody who doesn't have a stake in the community or the school to come in and facilitate the team. And then take the time, take the problem to the team and maybe discover an option 5. So maybe saying, hey, we don't like any of these options. Let's go back to the problem. What will meet our needs and have them think about that as well. So